Alright, so this is what if Deku was in a Xenomorph Invasion Part 2. Not today, since it is Wednesday, and I just woke up like at 1 p.m. or something. Like, I'm really pumped, and I'm really finna like do the grind today. So you're gonna be getting a quadruple upload today. I'm basically gonna be uploading 3 what ifs today. I'm gonna be uploading what if Deku was half white dragon probably tonight. I'm also gonna be uploading what if Deku was what if Deku, I think I was gonna upload, yeah, what if Deku was from Atlantis, and also this what if, and you're probably gonna get this around maybe like 3:30 because each video is gonna be like pretty long. So yeah, so because I'm recording this right now at like 3:06 p.m. So yeah. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. I also am gonna be doing my first reaction video probably next week or today, actually, after I get all these what ifs done, or probably because most likely I put a lot of energy in my what ifs lately, so I might have enough juice to do my reaction video. But I am going to be doing it at least maybe tomorrow or next week on Monday. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Please like and subscribe, and let's dive right into the video. Now we start our story off last time where we left off. As you see that we were introduced to 3 separate stories in this, pretty much universe. As in each time, guys, when our characters come across each other and the story is intertwined into one story, I'll introduce other stories involving other My Hero characters and other stuff like that. And it also will be a lot of flashbacks. So that's one thing that's going to be in this series. I also am going to be doing a lot of pretty much lore, and this is going to be one of the videos of the many other videos, and it's going to come from this little fanfic I made, like 5 parts. I'm going to be introducing the main lore behind Deku and why he has these abilities. So let's dive right into the video. I'll start our story off last time we left off with the Todoroki family. The Todoroki family, after last episode, as they came across the first of many of hybrid Xenomorph forms. As to put it simple, these hybrid Xenomorph forms are just, Xenomorphs mixed or pretty much breeded with other animals such as gorillas, tigers, rhinos, and other creatures like those. As we see that, well, next morning after they dealt with the 2 hybrid Xenomorph gorillas, the Todoroki family went on their journey to go near the city area where they thought their father was, to check up on him to see if he's still alive or to see if his corpse is there, to pretty much specify if he's alive or dead. So they go down there. We see that Todoroki and Dabi basically make their way down to downtown with with Natsu. I'm just gonna pronounce his name that way. The other brother, the just pure white-haired brother they have, Natsu, and Fumi. As they all go down town street, as they walk around, as they try to keep as much low profile as they can, not trying to draw any Xenomorph attention towards them. As the Xenomorphs near the city block would be more, well, let's just say, more nocturnal, as they would be hiding in the shadows, and eventually they would come around the city block as they would see the city center. As they would look around, other heroes being murdered and slayed, and then we're all looking around, seeing multiple people being massacred, and Xenomorphs leaving a trail of death where they left. So they would have been looking around as Toy would have been looking on the different different corpses and other things like that. Basically, him coming across a nearby coffee shop as he would just straight up just absolutely loot pretty much the cake pops and everything, just take everything, as he would put it in a nearby trash bag. A new fresh trash bag that was in one of the boxes behind the counter, as he would have to start to rate everything, as they would have just started to split up and rate everything. As we can switch to Natsu, as Natsu is rating a nearby CW. Sorry, wrong. He would be pretty much raiding a nearby Walgreens, as he would be raiding this, as he would just take antibiotics and stuff like that, just overall just grabbing everything he could, as he would eventually stop in his tracks, staying as still as possible, as he would see a Xenomorph looking over pretty much a dead corpse. The Xenomorph would have been looking around as it would spot, Natsu. As it would have ran after Natsu, as Natsu would have booked it, as he would have sprinted off. As as Nazo would have started to use his ice manipulation power to pretty much go up against the Xenomorph, as he would have frozen the Xenomorph solid, as he would have pushed or fell on his back, him basically being more used to using his quirk more rapidly and faster. Which would have gotten back up, him grabbing the bag of stolen pretty much goods or raided goods from from the Walgreens, as he would have booked it leaving the store. So he would have walked away, as he would have came across his other brother Todoroki, as Todoroki would have had another big bag of stolen goods, basically just snacks, from a nearby candy shop, as it would be the closest thing towards Shoto that he would have just raided. As Fuyumi and Toya would have been sticking together, as they would be raiding stuff together, as Fuyumi didn't really have a very powerful quirk, as Toya just used his quirk to protect his sister, or his little sister, as he would just be pretty much giving her backup, as she would just be raiding everything else. As they would come back in the middle of the center, as they would have meet up with each other, as they would have looked around, and they would have been looking around plus raiding, as they would have not found, well, Endeavor's corpse or even little flames of him. They would see multiple burn and scorch marks along the buildings that they knew that he was here, but they didn't find his body. So either he's, really dead, like they massacred his body, or he's alive somewhere. As they make a quick assumption that he probably went back to the house, or either basically went back or went down to, well, the South Pole or North Pole to pretty much see himself. But Shoto said our father isn't that cruel, as he really wouldn't just let us die. As they would have thought about going back to, pretty much the Shoto household, as they knew that they locked it up pretty tight before they even left, so there's no way a Xenomorph could have got in there. So either, our father got there and is waiting for us, or he thinks we're dead, since we've been gone for hours. And basically, pretty much, well, Toya says that he can protect himself, and he'll figure out sooner or later we made our way down to North Pole. As, Endeavor, at this point, should be hearing the constant loop on the radio we put on for him in case he came back. So they put a loop on the radio before they left, saying pretty much everything about the drills and like the North Pole and everything like that. So pretty much, well, Endeavor or Engie should be able to figure out, or put two together to figure out where their children are going. As we get switched to Endeavor, Endeavor is somewhere slimy and goopy, as he would be looking around, as he would be constricted in front of some sort of eggs, as he would have been moving around, as he would have looked in other areas, as he would see other pro heroes, such as Sandstorm and a couple other heroes, and also one particular famous hero we all know, Best Genius, as they would be looking around, as Endeavor would use his power to break out of the bindings he was in, as he would have also freed Best Genius, but they all would have just dipped, as they would have saved other heroes. They would start to leave, as they would have been, well, pretty much ambushed by other Xenomorphs keeping guard, as the Xenomorphs would have tried to push them back in the room, not trying to let them leave before the eggs hatched. As Endeavor would have used his fire abilities to make a clear path, burning his way through, as he would have booked it alongside Best Genius about to leave, but more Xenomorphs would have came, and only about 3 to 5, including Endeavor, would have been able to escape, and Best Genius would be left behind, being massacred alongside the other members of the other people there, as they would all be, well, let's just say, face huggered, or face huggers would have got them. Very simple. And if you know Xenomorph lore, you know what I'm talking about. So Best Genius is dead. He's like really dead. So yeah, so the Xenomorphs got him and a couple other pro heroes and also civilians, and they are now vessels for reproducing other Xenomorphs, chest bursters. So after that, we can switch to Endeavor in the streets, as he would be, was pretty much not sobbing, but he would be kind of, he would have felt guilty of Best Genius's death. Now he would be looking around, as he would be on a huge symbiotic type mountain in the middle of Japan, like the center of Japan. As he would have been looking around, as he would have seen, not the center of Japan, it would be near about 2 to 3 miles away from the center of Japan, about like near where Endeavor's original hero internship place was at, basically near the same town the Musa attacked in original. As they would be looking around, as they would see that the city was completely flooded with some sort of gooey-like mess, as the Xenomorphs would be the sole population of this town area. As they would start to make their way through the town, as we get switched away from that story, as we get switched to Deku's story. As Deku would have been, as we get switched to Deku, basically them getting away from their little base area, as they would have made their way down to the South Pole, as in Todoroki and his family was also doing it as well, as they would be going down the South Pole. Now, as Deku would have been pretty much making his way down there, as where they were going on their journey there, as Deku would have been suited up into some different type of outfit. Since he originally, part 1, he was still in his he would still be in his pretty much class uniform from his, school, as he would put on his coat or nearby ripped up coat, gas mask, and a couple other suit item like in the rubble or the trash of Daku Beach, as he would have found apocalyptic type outfit, exactly like the picture we see Deku in right now, him still having his red boots or red high tops on, as Deku would have also had a suit or outfit extremely similar to his hero costume, but without the pretty much visor or whatever is on his ear, and basically with the lightning bolts being a little bit more dirtied up and a little bit more covered in dirt, as he would be, a lot more of a dodger type person, as he would be more of the dodger, and since he would be, his power would be, to timid. Oh my gosh, bro, his power would be pretty much unrelenting, or it would just go after anything it got because it would act like normal electricity. It would just shock anybody near it. As Denki would have mainly resourced to his powers, yes, but also would have resourced to pretty much his other abilities, such as pretty much, let's just say his actually pretty good handy skills with a bat or crowbar or a stream of sticks, as it would be pretty versatile in other hand-to-hand items or hand-to-hand weapons like those. As Mina would have also been there as well, alongside, I think the tape court guy, and also pretty much Kirishima, as they would all make their way, and also Jiro, as they would all make their way pretty much into the city away from Daku Beach, as they would be walking around, as Deku would have told him that he had to stop near somewhere, as he would have stopped near a nearby map of Japan, as he would have looked around, as he would be still thinking about his grandparents and the cabin his grandparents had, as he would still think about his parents telling him to go to his grandpa in the North Pole or somewhere near that area. As Deku would have thought about this more and more, as he would eventually just skip off of this question, as he would want to figure out what was going on, as he would point to these pretty much research facility, as he would have asked them to make a detour down there, as Mina would have been on his back saying, "Are you crazy? Go down there where it all started?" As Deku would have told him that it would be a good way to figure out how to stop them if it's no way, for us to kill them, we just leave. As Mina would have told him that it's a suicide mission or it's a suicide job, as in, she would have said, that's suicide job. It's a suicide job. You can't really do that, because as Deku had told him that I'll find I'll go alone. As he told Deku that we'll send somebody with you, as they all talk to each other, as Denki's eventually pretty much booted or pressured into going with Deku. As Denki says, really me? As Mina would have just told Denki to just go and help Deku and then try not to get killed. As Denki would have just scoffed at them, him walking off, as he would have told them, "I hope you guys die." Basically, him walking off with a smug personality, as they would have just walked off, telling them to stay safe and then meet them back at Avenue. I don't remember. Basically, just come back or meet back up near the city area or the city center where pretty much Endeavor would be at, or where the Todoroki family would have left. As pretty much we will see that Deku and Denki would have made their way down to the pretty much research facility where this would all start, where the Xenomorphs would have broken out, and where we would start to see the lore and the real story behind how the Xenomorphs came to Earth and how they would escape in the first place. As they make their way down there, we can switch to Bakugo's story. As we can switch to Bakugo's story, as Bakugo is still on the run away from Xenomorphs by his lonesome, as he would be pretty much going and wandering down the South Pole or near that area, just straight down south, as he would be still, going in the same direction, as he would be about to decide his, mind, as he wouldn't notice that he was about 2 miles away from the Todoroki family. As he would be walking around, as he would eventually take another left, as it would be another hour of him walking down the road, as he would eventually come across the huge, very xenomorph populated town where Endeavor would be found, or Endeavor would be, pretty much, hiding. As Bakugo would have looked at this, as he would have, hid and ducked in the different trash cans and cars and other areas, as he would see swarms of xenomorphs in different buildings and also different areas of the town, as he would be the sneakiest, or pretty much sneakiest he could be, as he would eventually come across a huge xenomorph. As a xenomorph would have been a mixture of some sort of tiger-like creature. As a xenomorph would have been a mixture of a tiger and a xenomorph, as Daku would have just as Bakugo would have just sat there, or stood there, being completely confused on this epidemic or whatever he was looking at. As he would back up very quickly, trying to get away from this, as he would trip over and fall into some trash cans, making huge noise, as the Xenomorph would have faced right towards him, charging straight towards him. As Bakugo would have dipped, him running off, and him grabbing his guns and starting to get them ready and reload them, as he would have, released the whole clip hours ago, as he would come across a swarm of Xenomorphs coming towards him. As Bakugo would have looked at the Xenomorph, as it would have jumped on him, Bakugo throwing another huge explosion since last time, as he would have a lot of sweat build up because he would be very tense. As Bakugo would throw a stupid amount of explosions, basically blowing a huge, crater big hole, as it would have pushed him back, as it would have almost cracked Bakugo's bones. As Bakugo would have looked up, as the Xenomorph would have been slightly burned, and his acid had fallen down to the ground, as the Xenomorph's front face, or that left part of his face, and also the whole left part of his body, including to the tip of his tail, would have been exactly burnt, chunks of it would have been burnt off. As the Xenomorph would have looked at, Bakugo would have just faced Bakugo, not being really able to look at him, as it would have charged straight towards him. As Bakugo would have dodged and dipped out of the way, as he would have eventually taken out one of the grenades and chucked it right into Xenomorph's face, as he would have taken cover underneath a car, as it would have blown up, as he would have been, going undercover under the car, as a bunch of other Xenomorphs, about 10 or 11 of them would have shown up, looking over the other Tiger Xenomorph's dead corpse, as he would be hiding under the car, trying not to be seen. Hours later, as he would have fell asleep under the car, as he would see the Xenomorphs would have left, and the Xenomorph Tiger corpse would have been gone, it being acid through, or it being pretty much burnt through by the acid blood, as it would be pretty much desecrated in the corner, or pretty much desecrated in a nearby alleyway, as the Xenomorphs would have moved the dead corpse of pretty much a Tiger Xenomorph, as they would have thrown it into a nearby trash can, it being pretty much get out the way, or it being taken out the way. As we could switch to Bakugo basically getting out from underneath the car, as he would have made his way trying to get out of this town, trying to come across any other weird Xenomorphs. As he would go into some buildings, him getting on the top of the building, surprisingly that building not being, pretty much infested by Xenomorphs, but by some sort of gooey, fleshy eggs. As Bakugo would be kind of confused of this, as he would just walk off, as soon as he goes through every floor, going up the stairs, as every time he passes through a floor, the eggs would move and slightly start to hatch. As Bakugo would have looked on top of the building, as he would be on the roof of the building, him closing the door behind him, as he would be looking around, as he would see that Bakugo would have been searching and looking through, taking some binoculars he grabbed on the way here, and on some sort of corpse, as he would be looking, as he would see some sort of group of people miles away walking down the road, as he would recognize one of the heroes there, or one of the people there, seeing Endeavor, as he would be shocked by this and trying to figure out where they were going, as he would have looked and it would be near a food center, as it would have been the only other place near here that had food and also was very much secured. So most people that were trying to survive would always or most likely go there. As Bakugo would have made his way down the stairs, as he would eventually see some sort of rice, or not rice, but some sort of gooey, or not gooey, but just sort of sack of a gooey egg he found earlier. As he would have looked around, as he would see some sort of face-type creature or some sort of spider flesh creature, as it would have jumped or lunged towards Baku. As the Baku would have blown it up or blown it over the explosion by instinct, as he would have looked around and you see hundreds of these things pretty much bolting towards him. As Baku would run up back the stairs, as he would have been chased, and he would close the door as the door would have been burst and hidden, and basically overall just being barraged by multiple of these things, him not being able to keep it open, as he would put a lock under pretty much, since it was like an open ass door, he would take a piece of wood to pretty much weld it shut, as it wouldn't really hold that long, as he would have started to figure out a way to get off the building, as he would have looked around and around, as he would eventually find some sort of raggedy, very actually really durable, and pretty much broken down bed sheet, as he would take this and basically make a type of, let's say, parachute type, makeshift parachute, as he would make an explosion underneath pretty much the curtain, or pretty much the bed sheet, as he would be exploding it over and over, trying to make a type of makeshift pretty much hot balloon, as it would fly off the top of the roof, as the facehuggers would have been, eventually broke through the door, as they would have looked or basically seen Bakugo pretty much just bolts off, as Bakugo would have been gliding through the air, as he eventually would have pretty much blew a too big of an explosion, breaking through the sheet very quickly, as he would fall onto the ground, falling into a nearby bed spring on a nearby alleyway, as he would break a few bones, as not break a few bones, but he would crack a few bones, as he would have a sprained ankle, as Bakugo would have gotten up, him pretty much yelling out in pain, or not yelling out, but pretty much grunting in pain, as he would notice that his leg was very jacked up, as it wouldn't be dislocated, but it would be very badly sprained, as Bakugo would have powered through it, him grabbing a nearby piece of wood, breaking it into two different stick type areas, as he would take a little bit of his bandage around his neck, as he would basically use this to wrap around his wrap around his sprained arm, as he would have kept it together, basically walking off and making a nearby pretty much making a makeshift crutch. Also, as he would be going across the streets, having a gun strapped onto his arm, or having a gun in his arm at all times, staying strapped because, he is injured and he can't use his quirk now very quickly as original, since he does have a sprained ankle and he has to walk now to his destination. As he goes through this, as he starts to walk through the city, as he eventually is about a mile away from pretty much Endeavor and the group of people he's with. Now we can switch away from that, and we can switch to Deku's main story with him and Denki. As with Mina and Kirishima and pretty much Jiro's story, their story is more complicated. They're literally just walking aimlessly, going across different xenomorphs. We're gonna get into their story later on, but not now. So as we get switched to Deku and Denki, as they go pretty much on their way down to the research facility, as they walk into the research facility, basically them surprisingly not finding any xenomorphs near this area. For some reason, maybe the research facility is pushing away the xenomorphs, pretty much their senses. As Deku, when he walks there, as he feels some sort of psychic block on him, as somehow, some way, somebody's quirk is keeping the xenomorphs away from this area. As Deku starts to freak out, as his eyes start to bleed, as Deku starts to figure out that something's wrong, something's happening, as Denki feels nothing, as Denki just grabs Deku and drags him closer and closer, telling him to just power through it, since you wanted to be here in the first place. As Deku, says yeah, and basically him just trying to power through it. As they walk closer and closer into the building, eventually them getting through the security pretty much panel to put in a code, as Deku just shocks it with Denki just shocks her with some electricity. They walk into the building, as they look around, as Deku's just very much confused on pretty much why he feels so bad, as he eventually passes by the threshold, as the threshold is about 6 feet long, As Deku starts to feel like he's having like 16 seizures at the same time at full blast, he feels like he's dying. As he feels like his heart's like stopping. As Deku's like starting to shake out of Deku's hold as he wants to get out. As Deku starts to transform or semi-form into his Xenomorph form as he tries to bite or claw at Denki. As Denki starts to freak out as he just shocks Deku with some electricity, knocking him out for a few minutes. As Deku is pulled into by through the threshold as he figures out that it just stopped as he wakes up a few hours later, as you see that Denki's talking to some pretty much, well, security guards, or more or less the military that's left there, as he starts to interrogate Denki. As Deku wakes up, as one of the soldiers points his gun at Deku, as Deku looks around and pretty much confused. As Denki tells him that you're awake. As they start to talk to the soldiers, as the soldiers say, "Why are you here, kids? You should have been evacuated the city." As Deku says, "You didn't really understand." I'm gonna say every country and every state was kind of stupid to pretty much pit a, well, evacuation team on every other state and country. As to put it simple, everybody was evacuated in other states and cities that are already invaded or pretty much, well invaded by aliens or the Xenomorphs. As pretty much the evacuations didn't really make sense because everybody was walking into other death traps and out of their town. So to put it simple, Deku mainly just told him that you guys just screwed us all over. We just all, died. And majority of people are already probably dead. Only about a quick 50% of human population is, well, alive. The other 50% or the other 20% is about, well, near the West Pole or the West Pole or the South Pole. Now, North Pole. Sorry, guys, North Pole. Now, Deku would have told the soldiers that he was here because his father worked here as a scientist. As they would have told him a scientist. So, your father worked on these things. As he says, "What do you mean?" As soldiers put away their guns and say, "Follow us, kids." And since the government's already probably most likely dead, and the White House is probably already overran, as they just walk off, as they introduce the kids or pull them through a type of, well, Area 51 type mess, and they start to look around as they eventually see other areas and other places such as that, as pretty much separate different tanks of xenomorphs and also pretty much dehydrated xenomorph facehugger eggs, as they would see multiple different xenomorph and other alien type projects, especially some sort of tube with some sort of long, lanky 7-foot or 6-foot alien with some sort of pretty much in appendages or some sort of spikes coming from its face, like some sort of, well, mandibles, as it would also have long, sharp hands, as it would also have some sort of tech around it, like it came off its body, like armor. So it would also have some sort of dreadlock type hair. As it would just pass by that creature, not really, I'm not going to specify it by name, but most likely longtime Alien fans probably know what that alien is. But Denki looks around and pretty much is very much confused and also scared by everything he's looking at. As they eventually come across the main room, as they see that it's completely messed up and destroyed, as they look around and they open a nearby secret hatch, as they say that it's Project XM, or Project Extreme Xenomorph. As they are pretty much confused by this, as Deku asks, what does that even mean? As they say, it's a project that they were experimenting with xenomorph DNA and human DNA to try to mix it into a perfect specimen. The perfect soldier without it having emotions and never being able to be killed or get tired or overall just have morals and never be able to be confused or pretty much deal with human or just overall moral values, it being a killing machine that no one can stop. As Deku would have been confused, saying, "So why do they even experiment with Xenomorphs to be, to be frank?" As they knew how dangerous they were. As the soldier would have said, they thought they could control nature. They thought they could control another species, a whole entire ecosystem, and throw it on Earth like nothing, with no problems. But they knew deep down, if these ever escaped, the world would be screwed over. And they did escape. The scientists moved to Hawaii and went off on different planets, basically them figuring out other space travel, and also them making a secret, undercover, very low classified base on Mars to stay away from Earth. And about 50% of the scientists are on that Mars type, base area. Just trying to see if the world survives this little project he had. As they are confused, saying, I thought they escaped. One of the soldiers say, yeah, they did, but we have suspicions that the scientists let them go to see how the Earth would be prepared for such an extinct or such a event. As they basically are told that for some reason, we don't know why, but they gave us a button to press it no matter what. If we were killed or we were on our deathbed, if a xenomorph got into the building and tried to kill us, to press the button and to release some sort of, mist or whatnot. As pretty much Deck is confused, talking about, what do you mean mist? As pretty much, the soldiers told Deku that it doesn't really matter because, since the security system simulating a type of antitoxin against xenomorphs, basically the toxin in the air makes xenomorphs freak out and have them, pretty much, experiment or, forgot, as the soldier starts to freak out, the soldier snaps his fingers saying, now remember, a type of toxin that gives xenomorphs the pretty much experience of a seizure or a stroke, as pretty much the xenomorphs are drawn away from this area. So normally, most of the time, xenomorphs never try to get in this area. As the soldiers show them more and other tubes of different aliens and other programs, as they shown multiple different programs and clone different situations of them cloning and remaking xenomorph alien human hybrids. Basically, him or Daku noticing that multiple other of these xenomorphs have black hair. Eventually, him looking and going through the tubes and clones of these pretty much programs and other failed projects. He eventually goes to the end of the hallway as he sees him. As Daku is incredibly confused and overall shocked as he sees the exact spitting replica of him, just a version of him deformed and with weird lanky alien body parts, as he starts to be incredibly and just overall disgusted as he backs up, basically him saying, what the hell is this? As the soldiers say, hold up, your Project XM. As Deku is incredibly confused, saying, what the hell you mean Project XM? As Deku starts to freak out, him pointing to the tube, saying, what is this? What is this? What is the program even about at this point? Him knowing or going back to how the soldiers said that was a cloning process, but that he never knew the cloning process was to make a human-looking like or human-like xenomorph creature. As Deku overall is incredibly confused, him freaking out at his xenomorph form showing through his outfit. As he starts to grow his claws, his tail starts to sprout from his body, as his face starts to turn completely black, as his skin turns into a midnight black, as his eyes go bright white, as his skin and his body starts to turn scaly, and he starts to grow a foot taller, as he starts to get bigger and more angrier, as he eventually goes into a spiraling rage, as he starts to attack and pretty much slaughter everybody in the building. He kills both the soldiers as he corners Denki in the room as he's about to kill Denki, as Denki out of nowhere, out of fear, pretty much shocks Deku with so much electricity. Surprisingly, Deku doesn't blow up. So Denki passes out and Deku wakes up an hour later, as Deku wakes up and looks around. As Deku picks up Denki and pretty much has to wake him up and says, I'm sorry. They have a huge argument about Deku having the xenomorph form, and Deku telling him, I never knew. You know my reaction back there. You knew I didn't know. As Denki tells him, so your father made a clone of you. A clone of you from xenomorph DNA. As Deku looks through the, documents hours later as they go back into the science room, seeing the, soldiers' dead bodies, as Deku is overall feeling really guilty for that. As Denki opens up a tab, as surprisingly the computer system is very easy to use, even for Denki's knowledge, as Denki starts to walk through the, pretty much archives as he eventually finds all the project or all the pretty much, tests from Project XM. As he looks over Project XM, as it's multiple pretty much tests or even the tests or clips of past and overall utter failures of the test. Cloning processes that went from months to days for years, for decades, and even such millennia as since the 50 years of, science of space travel being, explored. As Deku eventually looks over the planet, or not the planet, but looks over the plans, as he sees that it was a cloning process to bring back human DNA and xenomorph DNA and mix them into the perfect specimen together. Completely and holy matrimony. The strength and the abilities of a xenomorph plus the knowledge and the, experience and also overall, smartness or intelligence of humans. As pretty much Deku looks over the xenomorph DNA from a queen xenomorph mixed with normal male xenomorph DNA, as it also is mixed with human DNA. Him looking over the human DNA specified as the human DNA is DNA from a child 50 years ago named Izuku Midoriya, as Deku has the exact same name. As Deku is confused, as he looks over and goes on pretty much the computer and looks at the name Izuku Midoriya, as he figures out 50 or about 60 years ago, a kid named Izuku Midoriya was born, and he was killed in a brutal, fatal car accident. During this time, the great-great-grandfather of that project was Deku's father. The great-great-grandfather of Izuku Midoriya was Deku's father, as Deku's father would have lost his grandson by his grandson and his already great-grandson. Because Izuku Midoriya at this time, as he died, he was about like 13 years old. As during this time, the great-great-grandfather would have made more and more projects and opening projects and also different cloning processes to try to bring back his great-grandfather, or his great-grandfather, Deku's great-grandfather, or Deku's, I'm confusing this. Let's start over. Okay, so basically, Deku's father, the person the person that was raised, person that raised Deku, everything. He's Deku's grandfather. Deku's grandfather. As Deku's real father, pretty much, is not to be found. As Deku's grandfather is his real father, and Deku's original self, or the DNA he's based off of, his clone, is Deku's grandfather's original son. Ah, man, I'm screwing this up. I wrote this script kind of like, so basically it's simple. Deku's father had a son, Izuku Midoriya, then he died, and he cloned Izuku Midoriya from Xenomorph DNA for Project XM. So Deku's father was the head of his cloning facility 60 years ago, before alien DNA was even came across, as they would just use normal corpse DNA to try to clone pretty much humans, to bring them back to life. As Deku would be told from the, pretty much recording of his father on the scientist, as it was a failsafe for Deku in case he ever came across this facility, as he recorded this when he went back to the lab before he got his robotic arm and before he was attacked by a xenomorph. As he would have told Deku that he was very sorry, he never told him that he's cloned from the past son of him, or the past son of, his, let's say, killed off son from a very young age. As he tells Deku that he's the perfect thing he ever made, as his original son was the love of his life, but his wife, aka Inka, went into a spiraling, pretty much festive rage of depression after Deku's death when he was about 5 years old. As Deku was cloned from 5 years and up to pretty much become Project XM. As after he was born, he was basically well, put together in a test tube, as he would eventually be cloned and re-put together as Izuku Midoriya. As Deku's father would have used his influence and also his knowledge of the tech and everything to erase his original son's memory and his documents, his signed documents, his, pretty much doctor notes and visits, and also his school projects and everything. Every ounce of the original Deku's pretty much existence, he erased it all. And also bribed a bunch of Deku's original teachers to forget about him. As Deku, the original Deku, in this world died years ago, and the Deku we're seeing now is just a clone of him. As Deku is overall confused and overall is just shocked at this, as he sees that he was just a project, a clone of the original, just a frail imitation of a clone, as he would have walked the same hallway as he would see other clones of himself, other blobs of fetuses and other things like that, and eventually see the last one, a clone of him, just more mutated, as it would be a failed project, as Deku would sit there next to the tube, as he would have been just crying his eyes out, as he would have noticed, not noticed, but he would have came to the conclusion that everything, every memory, every thoughts, everything he ever did in his life was all documented. He was just a clone, a project. He wasn't even real. As Deku would spend about a solid 30 minutes in there crying his eyes out, as Deku would eventually be told by Denki that we had to go, because after Deku attacked the soldiers pressed the button and a mist did not come out. The soldiers pressed the button, and the pretty much security system they had for pretty much the base or the security research facility, as they would have pressed the button and it would have turned off pretty much the security system, letting the Xenomorphs be able to go into the building. As about 16 to 15 Xenomorphs would have started to flood into the research facility, as Deku and Dinky would have booked it. As Deku would have booked it, as he would have looked around, as he would be overall confused and overall just didn't want these creatures to live, because he saw multiple of the original clones that were failed, they were still alive. As Deku would light up the building in fire, trying to kill these creatures to stop their suffering, as he would have been pulled away from Denki telling him that we needed to go now. As they leave through the back door, as they eventually just go out of the back door, as they eventually don't have another way out except for the water. As they jump into the water and they start to swim off, as they eventually get chased down by Xenomorphs. Very much freaking shark Xenomorphs, as they would have started to been chased down, as Denki would have electrified the water, as Deku would have told him, "What are you, stupid?" before he stops Denki, before Denki shoots out the electricity blast. As Deku jumps out of the water with Denki, like straight up Aquaman. Straight up Aquaman style, and gets out of the way as fast as possible. As the shark Xenomorph goes on land to try to chase down Deku and Denki, as they eventually start to run up the stairs, because they're on a lower dock area. As they run up the stairs on the dock area, as they eventually pass and make like very deep cuts and corners and just cut corners as fast as possible. As they eventually just run as fast as possible. A solid hour later, because they're on adrenaline, like they were running for a solid hour at full speed, like throughout the city of Japan, as they eventually bump into the original pretty much team, basically bumping into the Shoto family. As the Shoto family see Deku and Denki, as they are very much confused on what the hell are these kids here, like why are they here. Denki looks at them and they look at him, and Deku's overall confused at this, as he looks at the family, as he basically just sits there still. And I'm gonna leave it up here, guys. So this was not really eventful. I did go into the lore a little bit more about Deku's lore. Basically, pretty simple. Deku is just this world's version of Ripley 8. So basically, Deku is just a clone and basically the problem child to stop and destroy all Xenomorphs in the long run. Now, pretty much Deku is basically just this world's version of Ripley 8, and pretty much later on in the future, Deku is go into grasp or grab pretty much his heritage of him being a clone, or pretty much the clone son of every Xenomorph, the perfect Xenomorph, as Deku was eventually going to go in the grasp or come to pretty much reality of that reality that he is a clone. He isn't even really technically real, but eventually Deku will eventually love himself just like he originally did before he even knew the truth. So yeah, so basically Deku's story is going to become a little bit better later on. This is very rushed. It was just to throw in the basis of Deku's story, as in he is this world's version of Ripley 8. He's basically just a clone of a Xenomorph and human DNA, like Ripley 8. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And part 3 is going to be way better because it's very much rushed and it was not scripted at all. So part 3 is going to be way better, a lot more energy, and overall it's going to be like 10 times better. So part 3 is coming about probably next month or next week. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe as always, guys. Have a blessed day.